It's Tuesday morning. You know what that means. We're back with another TSL episode, talk around the wrestling world. We got some NXT stuff going on, Impact, interesting developments happening. We got fallout from AEW's Double or Nothing. We'll talk about what the hell is going on in WWE right now and some other going on around the wrestling world. This is TSL. And welcome back to Total Spotfest Live. I am JJ Brownlee, accompanied this today by the one, the only, the man who started an online petition to reunite Retribution. It is the ninth wonder of the world, our favorite young boy, Nick.
Hey, we all got to have a reason to get up in the morning. That just happened to be mine.
You just can't get enough of terrible masks and terrible names.
That's right. That's right.
We are, of course, without our co-host, Jamie. Jamie is still on vacation for the rest of the week here down in Florida with his family. So hope you're not sweating too much in the 90-degree heat walking around those amusement parks, but I kind of hope you are. I don't know. Maybe that's just the nihilist in me. But thank you guys for joining us. This is our wrestling roundabout of Total Spotfest Live. If you are watching us on YouTube, we do appreciate it. Give us a comment down below. If you want to join the conversation, you can also hit us up at Total Spotfest on Twitter. You want to talk to us individually, I am at JMoney1536. Jamie, even though he's on vacation, you can still holler at him at JFaulkner56. Nick has no means of communication other than being present occasionally on the internet. So that's about it. So yeah, so we had an episode yesterday that we released out. It was just Nick and I going over Double or Nothing. Before we get into it, Nick, I did want to ask you, because I heard a lot of rumblings from people. There was the typical WWE fanboys, they were trying to dog it as much as they could, right?
Of course. That's par for the course.
It's definitely par for the course. And it's like, it's weird that we've got this very almost, like tribal-esque instinct to the wrestling community,
It is very odd. It is very odd.
Because I want everything to be great. I mean, I just want to see good wrestling every night of the week. I love that, I don't have me personally, I don't have this, like, preferential treatment to one or the other.
Right. It's very interesting, actually, trying to, because speaking for myself, and I fully expect you and Jamie are probably on the same page when we air our grievances with Raw and Smackdown. It is very much out of love because they've been a huge part in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of one of those things when you've got like a sibling or a cousin or something that's kind of screwing up. And you're like, dude, come on, man. I love you, but God, what I'm saying?
Why do you keep doing the same stupid things to get in trouble?
Yes.
Yeah.
So at least that's where I'm coming from with SmackDown and
I
Raw.
appreciate that, yeah.
What's interesting, though, is when you listen to the different sides, there's definitely a disparity between what each fan base enjoys. So, for a person like me, I love the technical aspect of the wrestling, and I like the action of the wrestling. Sure. So AEW is definitely the place for me because it's more focused on that, and you still get your characters and your great mic stuff and all that, but the wrestling is the focal point. But I've seen some guys that are big wrestling fans, and they really believe in their heart and soul that the acrobatic stuff and just that focal point on the wrestling is not good.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they think it's terrible. And of course I'm over here scratching my head like, I don't know what you're looking at.
Wow.
But conversely, it's the same way with WWE. They look at me like I'm from outer space when I say I don't want to see a 10-minute monologue to begin the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's crazy. There's definitely a disparity there.
It is very interesting. I know that today, because like I said, there was a lot of kind of the reflection thing going on with that online. And I know on Twitter there was somebody who had posted about what's your favorite show, and they had a picture of AEW Dynamite logo, NXT logo, Raw, SmackDown. Said also include Impact. And then the responses there is just interesting. So this guy has a couple thousand followers, right? Whoever this like general wrestling fan Twitter, I don't know, whatever, But
So he had a good response.
yeah, he had a decent number of followers, and I think it got like 80 or 90 responses when I looked at it, and the majority of them were SmackDown. And I'm just sitting there, I'm sitting there just going, really?
Yeah.
And there were some people that were spin toxicity, whether it's SmackDown, NXT, AEW, whatever, at others. But I just was like, because I'm like you, like I'm a spot monkey. I want to see I want to see Canadian destroyers off of ladders. I want to see people try and murder themselves doing a 630 splash, just stupid stuff, and just like so. Yes, a lot of stuff in AEW appeals to me first. Impact and NXT are right behind it because they got plenty of guys who do that as well. They got matches where they do that. And then, but you're right though, because it's kind of like, no matter what team you root for, you always remember that team you grew up rooting because your dad, this is who your dad rooted for. That's who you rooted for, right? Yep. I remember like my dad was, my whole family, I should say, were Cubs fans. My grandfather would have played for the Cubs if it wasn't for the draft in World War II. He actually,
that's awesome.
God rest his soul. We're recording this on Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day to all you guys out there. We're going to talk. So my grandfather on my mother's side, he was from Springfield, Illinois. He had, and I didn't know this, but he never talked about this. He kind of was one of those, the past is the past, so I'm not going to dwell on it sort of guys, right? So after his funeral, I remember my great uncle, his brother, we were hanging out, we were doing some stuff around his house, whatever, and him and his wife were there, and we're talking, and he told me about this. And I go, well, no, Grandpa was a huge Cubs fan. He goes, well, actually, your grandmother was a bigger Cubs fan than he was. Grandfather, but Keith, he almost played for the Cubs. I go, wait, back up. He never told what? And it's like I knew he was a good ball player when he was in like high school and whatever. He goes, oh no, he had a tryout in 2 weeks before his tryout, and he would have made it. And 2 weeks before his tryout, he got drafted, and so he came back from the war, just started working. Got a union job and never looked back. But I was like, holy shit! But grow up as a Cubs fan, and then
it'll always be with you.
Yeah, so I remember that's what you kind of grow up with, and then eventually you become old enough, you become your own fan. We lived in Missouri. I became a Cardinal fan, then a Royals fan, and so it just you want that original thing. So even when the Cubs had won the World Series, as a Cardinal and a Royals fan, I still was kind of like, well, good on them. My grandfather. My grandmother would have been happy had they been alive. So I feel that. I think that's why I still watch Raw and SmackDown every week. Because I'm like, they can turn it around. They can get it back to what it used to be. So
I will say this, man. If they and this is part of the frustration with me for sure with those two shows is they've got all of the right ingredients. I just don't think they're really baking the cake properly. And
that's a great way to look at it.
They I mean, if that's your thing, God bless you. You've got it. You got 5 hours of material right there. What I would like to see and what would get me to return to those brands, if they were to keep doing what they're doing, but mix it up, like NXT, for example, you will have kind of a week on, week off thing between who's wrestling and who's doing promos. You know what I mean? If Raw and SmackDown would follow suit and do something similar, I think that would benefit them greatly.
Not have just the same 10 people every time.
Yeah. And I can't pretend like I've watched it in a couple weeks, but the reason being is the last 5-6 times I've watched it, it was the exact same matches every single episode, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. I think they would benefit from just a couple little tweaks.
Well, I think you'd be interested to hear. I have a few thoughts on this past week's Raw because there were some things that kind of go along that mindset. So keep that in mind here. As far as Double or Nothing, though, before we get into our news, I do want to say, last question. Where would you put? I think so far this year, you had Revolution, and you had, for me, you had Revolution, and you had NXT Takeover Stand and Deliver, probably the two best pay-per-views so far this year. I think this is right up there with them. I don't know if this is better than Revolution, but I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are calling this the best pay-per-view of the year, and some others are calling it, definitely not. So it's a love it or hate it thing. I think it was heavily influenced. I think a lot of people just because of the live crowd.
It makes
on paper, when you look at it, I mean, the triple threat match was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Stadium Stampede, but I like crazy shit like that sometimes.
Sure.
The women's match to me could have been better. Cage versus Page was amazing, but you had a Go-Go and Cody, and so it was. And the battle royal wasn't their best battle royal, so I think Revolution was a better one. I would put this right there on par with Stand and Deliver, maybe even a hair below it. So that's where I think.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
That sounds about right. It's the freshest in my mind, and the live crowd definitely makes a difference. With just kind of that added energy to it, but. I don't. To me, the AEW pay-per-views are generally very solid front to back. You'll have one or two that are, let's just say, decent, or
right.
could have used something, but to me, they're really pretty balanced. So,
And the fact that they only have 4 a year does help.
It does, dude. It helps tremendously.
You're not getting overkill. I mean,
I'm sorry for the Smackdown fans, but I think another thing that they benefit from is at their pay-per-views, each match is a match that you have not seen the weeks previously. It's a new match.
It's not the same thing that was on the last 3 pay-per-views and very.
Well, yeah,
it is.
That's one thing with WWE, man. They will show the match 3 weeks before a pay-per-view,
3 weeks,
and then they will have the same match on the pay-per-view.
It's crazy.
Okay, whatever you say.
You're not wrong. Well, keep that in mind here as we go along throughout the year, because I think that this one definitely is going to bear consideration. I think that in part, though, maybe a little bit does have to be taken with a grain of salt because of the fans being back. Now, I love this pay-per-view. Sure. I had a great time last night.
Me too.
Sunday night, whatever. I had a great time watching it, but we'll take it all in at the end of the year. So we're going to circle back to WWE in a hot minute, but let's talk about some news because there is some going on here. I do want to cover about numbers because this is very interesting. Mm-hmm. This past week, AEW was on Friday, and they're on Friday again this week. For those of you listening, that's why we're not going to be having our typical AEW Dynamite episode on Thursday morning because there's no Dynamite on Wednesday. So anyway, we'll talk about it next week. We'll talk about upcoming Dynamite. So the numbers for last week were the Raw from 5/24 from a week ago Monday, 1.621 million. They keep just dropping like a fly, like a bad stock. NXT was actually down a little bit too. They were 698 from last Tuesday. Smackdown from this past Friday was also down 1.755 million. And I don't want to call this the shocker because, I mean, it aired Friday night at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. AEW was at 510,000 for views. They were down over 30%. But once again, you move from your night to the weekend night to you're not even really in prime time anymore. You're at 10 o'clock, 9 Eastern.
Yeah.
That's a tough spot to draw. I mean, 500,000 I think was actually not bad considering.
I got a quick question for you. Would you say that it would be unfair to assume that the drop is based on content alone? Do you think there's possibly a springtime, people wanting to get out of the house?
Well, I think
maybe some competition outside of wrestling that's...
I think those are the two big... I think the first one, somewhat, yes. If people do want to get out of the house, it is also Memorial Day weekend this past weekend. Mm-hmm. Like I said, AEW especially, they changed nights. They moved to a Friday. That didn't help them at all. But everybody was down last week. I think that is a little bit to it, but I think also, and probably a bigger factor in it, was NHL and NBA. They're both doing their playoffs right now.
Right.
which is a later time than they usually do. Usually they're wrapping up their playoffs by now. Well, the NHL usually is done by now, more or less, and the NBA is like in finals world, right? So they're right in the swing of their playoffs right now. So that is not helping them. Mm-hmm. I think that's really, and you're right. There's a lot of other things. Things are reopening, so some people might just be like, "Screw it, we're going out to eat." We're not gonna be home to watch Raw. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I think that it has something to do with it. But yep, that's where we're at. Everybody's down a little bit. We'll see where they continue, where this line continues throughout the summer, because once you get past the excuse of the playoffs, right? Once you get past NBA and AHL, when they're no longer conflicting, then let's really see if numbers rebound. And if they don't, well, maybe there's more to it than we thought.
We'll see.
Couple news stories I want to talk about here before we talk about wrestling from the past week. Peyton Royce had her and Billy Kay. I know it's Cassie Lee and Billy McKay. I don't know. I apologize. I don't know new names for Billy Kay. But so I'm gonna revert back a lot and say their kayfabe WWE names a lot. But that's whatever. So Peyton Royce had revealed that on their podcast. Had revealed that the match. Remember, she had that bled her heart out in that promo, and then she got a match with Asuka. Well, she was told before she was released too, because she had that match and then it was back on the shelf, right? Well, she was told that the reason she got that match is not because of her promo, it's because somebody else got COVID.
That's nice. That's good for morale.
What a kick in the box. I mean, just like it's like she bled her heart out on this Raw talk, and you think, yes. Like, they're giving her a shot, even though it's not going to go anything, but they're giving her a shot, and they're like, oh no, she literally was a fill-in. So,
dude, they're oblivious. They're oblivious in the office,
especially to the women. Let's be goddamn honest.
Absolutely.
I am going to dig into them. I teased it last night or yesterday. I'm going to dig into them.
Dude, let loose. They deserve it.
So speaking of women, good news for women. Tony Khan confirmed that at All Out there is going to be a women's casino battle royal. So that'll be cool. That might be when we get to see one Maki Ito return. I'm just saying.
Fingers crossed.
You got to have 21 women. I mean, you got to say. We'll see what happens there. Also, some AEW news. They are down one Spanish announcer, Willie Urbina. Urbina, whatever. Really, you ain't gonna work in AEW anymore because he had a comment about Sheeta's accent and how terrible an English speaker she was, and it's just like
who said that now?
Willie Urbina. He's one of the Spanish announcers. One of the Spanish announcers. Right. Dude, how? She's Japanese. It's not a native language, and yes, there are similarities between English and Spanish. They're both Latin based. Japanese is not. It's a completely different world. The fact that she speaks as good at English as she does, she should be marveled. So I like this. We've seen this a few times in AEW. They don't put up with the bullshit. They're like,
dude, you know what though?
You're gone.
On that note, just to take it a step further, if you look at almost all of the Japanese wrestlers, most of them don't speak a word of English. So she deserves a tip of the hat just for being.
She doesn't. I mean, Io's okay. Asuka's okay. Shinsuke probably does the best I can think of for WWE. And he's a little bit better than both of them. Kyrie barely spoke English. Kyrie's saying, Japanese, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Asian languages are fundamentally different than English, French, and German and Spanish. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Yeah. So anyway, he got booted. I do like that from Tony Khan, that he doesn't put up with the shit. You screw up bad, you're out. So that's cool. And apparently, another thing that Tony Khan said, there's major changes coming to AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation. So in kind of the post-media scrum from Double or Nothing, they were asking about that, specifically how it relates to, because he's been talking a lot about expanding the roster and expanding things for when they have Renegade come on, or whatever the hell it's called. And what he said is that and this goes into play too with the touring schedule, because Dark was originally filmed as Dark matches before and after their Dynamite tapings, right? Well, since they got away from that and doing it at a set location, they do it on different days now, and that's why there's like 35 matches on Dark and 23 more matches on Elevation. You can film a day's worth of stuff, you know?
Right.
So he said the duration is going to change, and the formats are going to change a little bit too. Being very keen, keeping an eye on every match and every person, and he wants to make sure that he knows they're going to sign more wrestlers as they're moving into having this third hour on network, this new television show, but he wants to make sure that Elevation and Dark are doing things that are beneficial but not necessarily detrimental to the main shows, if you would. So they're gonna be tweaked a little bit, and I'm glad to hear that, because you can't really keep up with the same pace, you know, when you're doing live shows that they have been for Dark and Dark Elevation. By the way, Leo Rush is not officially signed with AEW. There is a handshake agreement he has with Tony Khan. So it's basically an open door-ish sort of thing, because his schedule is going to prohibit a lot of stuff in the short term. But Tony Khan really wants him there.
Oh, they're not going to put him in there as the Joker for nothing.
Nah, Tony Khan's wanted him for a while, I've been told.
No, he did, man. Even though it was brief, I thought he was brilliant in the Battle Royal the other night. I thought he did fantastic.
He's a fantastic example of somebody who had a bad out at the end of WWE and didn't let it get to him and made the most of it and really bounced back, you know.
Yeah.
There are others that had bad outs, you know. You think of W. Morrissey, who was, you know, the former Big Cass, you know. Yes, he had a medical scare in the middle there, but he also had a bit of a breakdown. Some other things that went on is the thing with Carmella. I mean, it took him a while to kind of bounce back, and you've had others who haven't, you know. I mean, Enzo Amore is still kind of blackballed in a lot of circles, even though I don't know if he should. I mean, but Leo, to his credit, did the hard work and, you know, put boots to the ground, got himself back into a considerably good spot. So we'll probably be seeing him in the future, just not maybe in the near future, in AEW.
Yeah.
So it is in the near future for WWE is SummerSlam, and oh my God, I spent some time earlier today trying to get details, because everybody is being very forthright about not being the one who actually leaks out the stuff, but apparently, and the word that keeps coming around is disaster, is what it keeps coming around. Now, right now, SummerSlam is set for August 21st, and they really want to do it in Vegas. And I was wrong before when I said the T-Mobile Arena. They actually want to do it at the Raider Stadium, at the Black Hole.
That'd be an amazing venue.
It's an awesome venue. 60,000 people right there on the strip too. You know, whatever. But the first hurdle they have is that exact same night as Manny Pacquiao's return match against Errol Spence Jr. And as much as you don't care, I don't really care that much either, because I'm not a big boxing guy. It's a big deal in Vegas. It's a big.
Oh, sure, dude. Boxing, anything.
Yeah. So that's happening the exact same night in Vegas, and there's everybody. Like I said, I tried to dig up the bottom. Like the dude from WrestleVotes has he was quoted as saying, "Honestly, it's a disaster, and I don't need that blood on my hands." Talking about he doesn't want to be the one that leaks it out, especially if Vegas doesn't end up happening. Sheesh,
wow.
You know. So yeah. And if you watch any of their commercials or promos, all they do is they have like the SummerSlam. They have the typical like slideshow of stuff. You know, here's John Cena. Here's, you know, Roman Reigns. Here's this. Here's that. And then it just gives a date. It doesn't say where it is still. And so August 21st, maybe in Vegas, maybe not. I don't know. It's a total shit show right now, which is. I mean, you just cut your losses and go to Texas, right? You know, say screw it, we're gonna go to the Alamo Dome or whatever. You know, go wherever you can get an open spot. I don't know, whatever. More interestingly than that, this is the last little bit of news I had here. There was this odd report I read on Wrestle Talk, so it was actually linked through from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And Dave Meltzer wrote this story about an incident involving both the person that were involved with this and the person whose place they were at, the house they were at, are apparently no longer with WWE anymore. So I don't know why this story hit the wire over the past weekend, but there's news of a incident backstage of indecent behavior with WWE talent. Wow. So what it was is apparently a WWE wrestler hiding a phone in a bathroom, and there was a bunch of indecent photos taken from it. I don't get the whole bathroom thing. It's like, come on, guys. Porn you can find on the internet for free. Why do you have to like try and get bathroom photos of girl? I just don't get some of these people sometimes.
I'll tell you what, this will make more sense for you. If you are the type of person that would place a phone somewhere to get some sort of sexual material off of it, if you're that type of person to begin with, it's probably a natural second step to do that in the bathroom.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're not going to be like the 13-year-old in junior high who stands at the bottom of the big stairway going up, looking up at your girl's skirt. You know, I mean I get that, but so apparently it hit a phone in the bathroom, and talent found the phone and found less than savory files stored. It got out this week because it was weird because some people thought it was done in the WWE dressing room, but I think that's why. It's just a story that kind of resurfaced, so they had to squash it by putting it out there. It was at a party at a residence of a wrestler who is no longer with the company, and the person who owned the phone is also no longer with the company. So why even release that is my whole thing. Why is that? Why that even make a headline? I don't know. Maybe Wrestling Observer is just try and get more subscribers. Well, I don't know. So
I mean, maybe something more will come out as it develops. We'll see.
I just kind of, since it says that somebody's no longer with the company, I don't want to know who it was, because now I'm intrigued. Now I'm like, you know. All right, well, that was the news I got for this week. There wasn't really a ton of fallout yet from Double or Nothing. A ton of news post that. The post-media scrum was very low-key. Like I said, there was a couple little things that, more procedural stuff that Tony Khan talked about. I imagine we'll get more coming up here in the next few weeks. He did cut a promo, and it was released on the Saturday, this past Saturday. TNT had a before Double or Road to Double or Nothing or whatever the fuck, like special, and he had a promo in the middle of that with Tony Schiavone where he basically talked about how he's surprised that there's another con in wrestling, and that that he has all this stuff going on with New Japan, because WWE is reported to be in talks about an exclusive relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Nick Khan, who's the executive vice president of all of WWE, he's actually above Bruce Pritchard and Dunn, and he's actually right there with Vince McMahon. He apparently has been in talks with them. It's super unclear if the talks are actually still going on, if they involved anything more than Daniel Bryan, but it is a thing. So Tony had a thing where he basically was saying that fuck you, WWE. I've been doing this. I have future plans to work with them, whatever. So I take no stock in any of this. It's all noise. All right. Something else that was a lot of noise was NXT from this past week. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't know. This past week's NXT to me was, it just kind of felt off, And I know we talked a lot about why NXT is maybe not as good as it was before. No crowd hurts, of course. Although there is about 60 or 70 people, legitimate actual fans they have in the Performance Center now, so it gives them a little bit of a buzz. But lack of big names in the main event, who knows? But it just kind of, except for a couple things this week, NXT really just didn't do anything for me. I mean, you had Shotzi and Ember. They beat Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, and Raquel beat everybody up. Okay, cool. There's that. Pete Dunne and Bobby Fish. I don't care. Mercedes Martinez and Zaya Ramirez. That was a squash. And then afterwards, you have Blackout, and Mercedes has like the Tian Shaw shows up on the monitor, and she has a black mark in her hand, and like, okay. all right, I'm over the whole Tian Sha thing. Whatever. Frankie Monet had her debut. Frankie Monet is Tara Valkyrie from Impact, for those who don't know. She beat Cora Jade. Okay, sure, that was a good little squash match. And you had promos, you had setting up of stuff. Bronson Reed's going to be feuding with Santos Escobar, for the North American title. Okay, that's cool. Well, whatever. Next week you got Gargano, Dunn, and O'Reilly #1 contenders match because Karrion Kross had a legitimately good match against Finn Balor. I've heard people compare it to the match they had at Stand and Deliver. How it was better or worse. A lot of people said it was better. I thought it was the exact same match. I'm not gonna lie.
That's what happens, man.
I zoned out with it. And I thought it was a little bit better, maybe, but I couldn't get into any of this because once again, NXT is going into some of those pitfalls, and I think a lot of it has to do, like you guys said, they don't have the big name with it. So there was the $1 million standoff. I talked about that last week on our Thursday show. That was cool and all. I like that. They're setting up a thing with Cameron Grimes and LA Knight, but for the most part, this week at NXT was just kind of whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
They were on cruise control.
They definitely were. I think I know why ratings were down this past week. Let's be honest. So, across the board. Now, here's Impact. So let's talk. Impact was next, and Impact didn't happen on Thursday, and Impact 2 fell on cruise control a little bit too. Their next pay-per-view is on the 12th. It's interesting because I definitely see Impact whenever AEW has a big week going on, week before, week of a pay-per-view, whatever, Impact definitely takes a step back. I think they know that in a way Impact is almost kind of tied to AEW. Similar styles, fan bases are more likely. AEW fans are more likely to watch Impact than Raw fans are. Let's be honest, So this past week, a lot of setup. Like I said, Against All Odds is their next pay-per-view. Is happening on June 12th. And you had some cool stuff that happened. There was TJP and Fala Bala, who's this South Pacific guy, real big South Pacific guy. It's his best friend or whatever. They teamed up against Josh Alexander and Petey Williams. That was an interesting match. TJB ended up getting the pin over Josh Alexander, and that means, and here's the thing I told you, I just wanted to spoil you about yesterday, is that this week's Impact, they have a pre-show, right? It's called Before the Impact. It's an hour before the actual Impact show. I don't know if it's on Axis, if it's on their website, if it's on YouTube. I apologize. I know it's on Axis. It might be on other stuff, but starting on that show is going to be an X Division title match. It's a 60-minute Iron Man match between TJP and Josh Alexander. It will end at the beginning of Impact Wrestling. That alone is worth the watch right there. 60-minute Iron Man match between those two. Oh. I'm excited for that because I've become a big fan of Josh Alexander. TJP's got the skill. He always has. His character's a lot better than it was when he was just a video game kid in 205 Live. So that'll be interesting. Other than that, there was a whole lot of filler, honestly, on this week's Impact. You had a 10-woman tag match, which was conflicting storylines all over the place, right? They're setting up all these things, and it's just a lot of noise. Rosemary's going to fight Deonna Purrazzo next Against All Odds. Violent by Design had a lot of stuff that they did because they won the tag championships the week before. The Good Brothers, they beat Moose and Sammy Callahan. They're definitely setting up Moose and Sammy Callahan because they continually turned on each other. They're setting them up for like a post Kenny Omega. The two of them will be feuding if Moose is still in Impact. I mean, it was fine. It was better. The wrestling was better than some of the other shows that I'm going to talk about here momentarily. But for the most part, it was just, like I said, a filler. It is weird that whenever there is that big AEW week, Impact seems to kind of just turn it down a notch or two. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. But that 60-minute Iron Man match, man, I'm telling you, that should get you to watch.
No, definitely.
So,
I've always been a fan of the Iron Man match to begin with because you're only going to have a certain type of wrestler participate in an Iron Man match.
Yeah.
And you know going into it that it's going to be good wrestling. It's not just going to be some bullshit.
Well, it has to be. You have an hour that you have to be out there in front of the fans.
Yeah.
So you can't pull this. You can't pull some some Miz bullshit stuff or whatever.
Exactly. That's the best person to use is the antithesis of it.
Yeah. Could you see the Miz do an Iron Man match? No, I could not.
No.
Could you see Roman Reigns do it?
No.
No, I can see Kofi Kingston do something like that if we're talking WWE. I can see AJ Styles for sure.
AJ Styles is the first person I would think of,
Yeah, I think AJ. I mean, I could see AJ and Drew McIntyre doing an Iron Man match. That would blow the socks off. But
that'd be interesting.
Or how about AJ, Ricochet, and Aleister Black? Three-man. Three.
Now you're talking crazy.
Now we're talking. Now we're getting down the road of what WWE should be doing. Yeah. Let's not do that because let's talk about what the WWE actually does.
That's just silly talk.
Yes, silly talk indeed. Speaking of silly talk, Smackdown from this past week, the show that we opened up with. Apparently, a lot of the internet views Smackdown as the best TV show. I give you the counterpoint right now because. Here's how you open SmackDown. Take a guess. Just throw any thought you can think how they would
You're
open.
asking me how I think it may have opened?
Yeah, this past Friday. How do you think it opened?
Roman Reigns.
Absolutely.
Monologue.
We had Roman Reigns family drama, which led into the Street Profits versus the Usos match. And that encompassed the first 38 minutes of airtime.
I will say this. Now, mind you, I haven't seen the past few weeks. To me, it sounds like the Street Profits are at least something that would have my attention.
The Usos and the Street Profits are a match that I legitimately would want to see.
I would want to see that. I would.
But I'm just so done with this back and forth story. They're doing the exact same thing with Jim that they did with Jay last year. They're doing the same crap. The match itself was fine. It covered 3 commercial breaks, which is just not good for a match. I mean,
this is all I can say about this, and we touched on it earlier. Roman Reigns is the face of the company, and it must be for good reason. And all I can say, because obviously the fans want it. If that's their show, he's the face of it. All I can say is I don't understand it, and I just have to. It's one of those things where I'm not going to try to figure it out. It's
tough because I mean the ratings definitely do not reflect that. So. They keep going down. So somebody's wrong here, whether that is people who are taking the count of the ratings, the people who are saying it's the best out there, or the people who are putting it on. Somebody's wrong. I don't know who. But
it's madness.
Once again, as I've said ad nauseum, I like the idea behind this family gimmick. I do. It's so much better with use of Roman Reigns than whatever the hell he had done for the past 8 years. It's just not followed through enough for me.
No, I think you're dead on.
And so anyway, that took up the first 40 minutes almost of the show. And then how do they follow that up? What do they do to JJ, who is like, oh, I'm going to invest my time. I'm going to watch this. What do they do after that? They give me a match with the Riott Squad. Thank you. Here's how they. No. Let me get through this here because I get to see my girl. Hey, Ruby. How do they do it though? How do they do these girls? Here's what they did.
Did they squash them?
Oh, just listen to how this went down. So it's the Riott Squad versus Natalya and Tamina. Natalya and Tamina come out. Commercial. Come back from commercial. Match is already under fucking way. No entrance. Tamina's not even there. Apparently they're making Riott Squad heel. Cool, great. I would have loved to fucking see that, because you have one legitimate tag team in all of the main roster, both shows. One actual women's tag team, not a collection of 2 random fucking women. And this is what you do to them. So yeah, apparently they jumped Tamina before the bell rang. I don't know that. She's like halfway under the ring. They barely showed her in like a part of a shot and made mention.
Geico commercials.
Yeah. Exactly. The match already goddamn started, and from what I saw from the 4 minutes they aired on TV, it was all Riott Squad doing actual double team moves. A few of them were a little bit off, but that's okay. They haven't wrestled in a fucking month, you know. Mm-hmm. One move by Natalya, countered. Out of nowhere, here comes Tamina, who gets a hot tag. She comes in, does one move, and then they start beating up her again, and then split them up. Tamina does a reversal on the top rope. Her terrible impersonation of her father's splash. 1, 2, 3. Tamina and Natalya win. What the fuck are you doing? Seriously.
Dude, all I can say is I hope that the Riott Squad is getting paid. Because, I mean, dude, they've been, let's just say, neglected, mistreated, what have you, for years.
Yeah.
For years at this point.
I mean, you remember,
dude.
You remember back when they had all 3 of them, you know. You remember back when they were originally heel when they came up, and that was great and all, right? And they were good at being heel, and they actually got good heel heat, you know, from the crowd. The whole Natalya angle before, where they were making fun of her father after her father had just died,
smashed
that was
his sunglasses and all that.
Yeah, that was fucking great. That
was
brilliant. That was showing Ruby and Liv and you know, at their best, and then they break them up. Okay, whatever. You know, that sucked. It basically killed Sarah's career. Now she got released and retired, and she's, you know, which is good on her. Whatever, do what makes you happy, right? You know. And then Liv had that terrible angle, you know, of the lesbian thing with Lana.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they're always doing something silly like that, dude.
I know that.
It's like they don't know what else to do with women.
I know. It just drives me crazy because it's like you have one actual. Okay, I like Shayna and Nia as a tag team. But unbeknownst to me, they worked out well as a tag team together. Other than that, there's no other tag team on the main roster except for the Riott Squad. Mm-hmm. Tamina, I understand. You give her a title, she's 10 years. Okay, good, cool. Give her a title. Title reign's over now. Let's get it off of her. Sorry, Tamina. You had your title. You could put it on your mantle. I don't buy her as an intimidating threat at all. I don't buy any of this shit, you know. So that made JJ very
So that understandably
put me in even more sour mood for the rest of the show. And the rest of the show was just a bunch of crap, whatever, you know. Bianca Carmella, I could care less. But there was 2 good things about the show. One of them was Bayley's commentary during Bianca and Carmella, because she invited herself out, and her feud with Michael Cole is probably the only feud on SmackDown I really want to see. It's still great. Like, she just she breaks kayfabe. She just digs. Whenever he botches something, she calls him out, like, on the middle of live TV. That is great. Bayley is fantastic.
You know what?
With Michael Cole. I can't believe I said that.
If they keep Michael Cole on the desk, it should just be a rule that they have somebody there to jack with him, because that makes sense, because he is irritating and he's grating. But if you have a counterpoint to him, then it makes sense. So I think that's fantastic.
That was entertaining.
Yeah,
I love me some Bayley. She's underutilized, I think, too, but it is what it is.
I will say this, man. I'm glad to see that she's at least evolved as you know.
Yeah.
She's always been a good wrestler. She's always, in my opinion, she's always been good technically.
The hugger section and Bayley buddies, that only got so far. And we all like, oh gosh, she get the main roster and print money. And it was hot for like a second, but then it didn't really take on the main roster.
Right.
And I'm glad they moved it away into this.
I do like her new direction.
Right. And she's reinvented her heel persona a couple different times, you know. This new annoying one is by far my favorite variant of Bayley.
Me as well.
So that was entertaining. The other entertaining part was our boy Rick Boogs. Eric Bugenhagen, which I know you're not on the internet. You're not on Twitter, really. But his Twitter account is fantastic. He was basically...
I'll check it out.
He was providing encouragement to his wife by playing Du Hast while she's working out.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man.
It's just those clips of him just jumping in as she's doing squats or pull-ups or Du Hast.
Oh,
Du
you know
Hast
what?
is
I
great.
did see that. I did see
Oh,
that
you
earlier.
saw that? It was
I didn't realize
fantastic.
that's who you were talking about.
That's
Yes,
Eric,
it was awesome.
that's Rick Boogs, or Eric Bugenhagen is his real name.
That's excellent stuff. If there was more stuff like that on Twitter, I would take part.
I know, right? Well, there is, but it's buried around a bunch of other crap.
Right.
So he's still your hype man for Shinsuke Nakamura, and I still dig that. He's cool. Shinsuke had a match against Chad Gable. There's a Chad Gable sighting. How about that? Your main event was what really shit. It's just the Mysterios against Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. They jump this time Rey Mysterio, so it's basically a 2-on-1 against Kid Mysterio. He ends up getting the win too. So, how the mighty have fallen.
You know what I miss? Which this is kind of a random thought, but one thing that I miss.
Logical storytelling? Yes, I do too.
I miss. Not to take away from their tag team, but I miss heel Ziggler just by himself when he would just come out and just be a dick. No matter what was going on, when he just came out by himself and just was just an asshole. And I miss Bobby Roode being kind of, somewhat of the Ric Flair, for lack of a better way of putting it. I miss those guys solo.
Yeah.
Again, not to take away from what they're doing now, but they were great as solo wrestlers.
They were, and I think that unfortunately, I don't see him break, because whenever Ziggler gets any sort of push, he never seems to get much anywhere. I don't know if it's because he doesn't have much backing behind the scenes.
I don't know, man.
It seems like people take to him, so I don't get it. But next week you're gonna have.
Mystery.
Well, it is, and you're going to have the Mysterios next week face off against the Usos for the tag team titles. So he just has 2 title defenses in 2 weeks. So that was SmackDown. There was that,
All right.
I said, as soon as that show with the Riott Squad happened, I was just fuming. I was just like, you have 1 women's tag team. And yes, I know I have this thing.
You
with
do
Ruby,
realize with respect to the Riott Squad that you are Charlie Brown and WWE is Lucy holding the football.
Absolutely. I know there's going to be a day. And I hate to even say it because I don't wish this on anybody, but I know that either they're going to be cut or they're going to split them up and they're going to cut Ruby because she's not big-titted and blonde like Vince likes. I know that'll happen.
Dude,
I hate to say this, though. The best thing I could see is on Dynamite one week. All of a sudden, here comes Heidi Lovelace, her former character's name before WWE, comes out. Total Punk, just like jumps Britt Baker or somebody, or Deonna Purrazzo on Impact. That, honest to God, would be a better use of her talents than what she's doing at now. And Liv's going to get pigeonholed if she doesn't get cut, like I think one day that they will do. I think they're going to split her up and they're going to try and repackage her again as something terrible.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, man, and like me, I'm not a big participant of the PC type stuff, but there is clearly a bias against
absolutely
women wrestlers because, dude, in WWE specifically, they don't see them as anything but cheerleaders, basically. And I don't mean like cheerleaders like they need to be, pom-poms and stuff. What I mean is like they are so good at their craft. Dude, they don't go out and look silly. We're not watching. It's not like you've got the NBA and then you've got the WNBA. Which would you rather see? Dude, no, these women wrestlers hold up just as well, if not better, most of the time, as their male counterparts. But it is so blatantly obvious that the upper brass in WWE sees them as nothing but sexual objects, dude. And it's awful. I feel so terrible for them because they're so good at what they do.
It is terrible. It is. I mean, everything that was done for the women's revolution, and which was a lot lot of placating. You didn't create the revolution. Impact really started that shit. But
absolutely.
Whatever. You had a all women's pay-per-view. You had all this stuff going on. Ronda
They
Rousey.
were really good. They were going great, man.
Becky Lynch main eventing WrestleMania. You had all this stuff all over the place. And NXT is the only one that's kind of kept up with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you can, you revert back like you said. And you have these women that don't fit in the mold, and they either make them fit in the mold or you get rid of them. You do stuff, whatever,
get rid of them.
know? Yeah. I mean, and you got you get people the ones that do stick around, that are there, that bust their ass. Like Ruby Riott, despite my, proclivity towards her anyway, she is the ultimate team player. She rolls with the punches. If you watch any of her matches, because all of her last matches for the past 2 months have been her and Liv getting squashed, she sells the living piss out of everything.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She does what you're supposed to do to get ahead long term. Team. She does all that. And was her reward? Fuck you.
Nothing,
that's your
dude.
reward.
Terrible.
Yeah, look at Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, for example. Like you have to go look them up after we're done recording here, because them last night is literally Vince's
Oh no,
wet
I
dream.
saw it.
Yeah, you saw what they were wearing?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's like Jesus Christ.
Dude,
These are
it is
two
wasted talent, dude.
You're talking about two fitness models, or a fitness model and a bodybuilder, that you are just making into just, a DDDD session,
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. There was a lot of people, if you look on paper from the results from Raw we've moved over to Raw, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the results from what happened at Raw, you would be astonished. You're like, this is supposed to be a groundbreaking episode. And it really wasn't. It just was the people that you thought win, it was their off week to lose. So you had Charlotte Flair lost to Nikki Cross in a 2-minute challenge, okay? Because they started with Ms. TV. Rhea Ripley is out there. So she lost to Nikki Cross this time in a two-week challenge. Reginald actually beat Shayna Baszler. And it was just stupid how the whole thing was
You're
done.
so lucky Jamie's not here.
I am very lucky, because Jamie, and for those of you listening, and Jamie's going to come into this next week, I know for a fact he does not like Reginald. He really does not. He could give a shit about Reginald. He only just doesn't entice me because I verbalize that hatred, and because I like Cameron Grimes legitimately and he doesn't, he has to try and get back at me. So he's trying to go over on Reginald. But there's no reason for Reginald's getting more of a push than any other woman on the women's roster other than Charlotte Flair. Just let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
Because that is the state. You had, what'd you have? It was, where did I write that down here? It was Naomi and Lana versus Dana and Mandy. And Dana and Mandy got the win. Mason T-Bar versus Lucha House Party. Who cares, right? Who really cares? Mason T-Bar looked great, but they're in this Dollar Tree. What was that? What was that? Dollar Tree Ascension tag team is what they look like. Sheamus lost to both Ricochet and Humberto Carrillo in separate matches. I said that right. So you have a bunch of people win that you're like, holy shit, they actually, but it really wasn't the sum of their parts. I mean, the Sheamus matches were okay. You had
didn't he get his nose busted or something?
Oh yeah. Humberto went for a forearm shiver and didn't get the right latitude and got him straight on the bridge. His nose was bent hard the rest of the match. It looked sick. Xavier Woods lost to Randy Orton. You have RK Bro in full effect. Randy used Riddle's finisher on the match. And the main event was legitimately good. It was Drew McIntyre, Kofi Kingston. It was about 35.
I did see that.
It's 35 minutes long, and it was one clean. There was no outside bullshit. So, I mean,
that's good.
You get a good match every once in a while, and you get some stuff that makes you think, oh, Ricochet's going to get a shot. Oh, Humberto Carrillo, he's getting a push. No, they're not. Don't think they are. This is literally 3-week push land. They'll be back at catering by 4th of July.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is a damn shame. It's a shame what they're doing with their women's division. It's a shame, really, kind of, just this, like you said, like we said earlier. We remember the days of Raw where it had must see. You had to tune in. It was something special. You never knew what was going to happen. It was just craziness left and right. And even if it wasn't craziness, you were so invested in the storylines.
Yeah.
And I'm just not. I could care less. It's almost a chore anymore just to watch it. And that's why I don't really watch them all. I literally start it halfway through and I skip through because there's so much crap in it now. Alexa Bliss promo, and now she's feuding with Shayna, I think. I don't know. I have no idea. Who cares, right? Mm-hmm. Set up a story, stick with it, make it interesting. It's not hard. So
yeah, it honestly, to me, it looks like they just don't care, and not the wrestlers, the company. They're just rich beyond all reason.
Oh.
They're got money pouring in, and they're just kind of fat and lazy right now. That's the way it appears to me.
Well, it's blatantly obvious when you look at when you watch these shows, that they were definitely finalized hours before production started.
Right.
It's blatantly obvious, Mm-hmm. You could have a chance to set something up here with Ricochet or Humberto Carrillo against Sheamus as a decent feud. Have that culminate, at a pay-per-view, Money in the Bank, something like that. Mm-hmm. Or, you could actually make it into an actual thing. It's not bad. Sheamus, good performer. Ricochet and Carrillo, good performers. They could put on a great match, But what do you do instead? Well, you have them just fiddle with each other every fucking week. And then what's the payoff? There is no payoff because it's 50-50 booking. You're not building this to anything. You could pit Carrillo versus Ricochet against each other in a series of matches and pulling elements, and then the prize is you get a shot at Sheamus.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good booking strategy because then you get to see some really good wrestling build up to a match that you're invested in. But they don't do that.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, well, I'm not working for their creative because I'll probably get fired for some shit like Kevin Dunn, and then I don't know where my life will go. So that's what we got for this week in wrestling. Like I said, a lot of it felt kind of, I don't know, maybe just a lull time, maybe it's just a little bit overload because we had such a an emotional kind of experience with fans back at AEW Live. But tell us what you guys think. Also, chime in the conversation. What is your favorite show? Do you guys prefer one WWE show to another? Do you like any of them? Do you like Impact above all else? Are you just AEW or bust and like to hear us bitch about shit? Let us know down below because I generally want to hear every argument. If somebody says that I like this show, I want to hear, okay, why? Tell me why. Let me know. Let us know. So give us a comment down below. Give us a tweet at Total Spotfest. You can holler at me directly too. That's at JMoney1536. Nick's not on the internet like we said. You can't.
Just if you got anything to say to me, you're gonna have to use JJ as his middle guy.
Just say it to me, and I'll relay it. I am not the Young Boys mail delivery service. Okay. All right. So that's what we got. We will not be back for the rest of this week. Like I said, AEW's Dynamite's going to be on Friday night at like 10 o'clock, right? So we'll pick up a little bit of that next Tuesday when we come back in. And as far as I know, next week's Dynamite should be back to Wednesday. So I think it's just these 2 weeks here. So hopefully, God willing. If it's not, we'll keep you updated. We'll let you know. We will have Jamie back fresh from vacation next week as well, too. So that'll be fun. Nick, do you have anything else you want to say to everybody?
It's kind of interesting how life works out sometimes, man. I feel like I kind of got my wish in a sense. You remember an episode or two back when I was kind of ranting and raving and I was really grouchy. And when you blew your gasket when you were like F the rest wrestling industry and I made that Thanos reference. So I didn't know this. I'm sure you probably had some insight into it before, but I didn't. When they announced that there's going to be, unless I misunderstood, it sounds to me like there's going to be Dynamite, and then there's going to be Rampage. Is that correct?
Right.
So there you go.
Friday show. So
there you go. I got my wish.
I think you were so focused on what's happening now that you heard the words that you didn't hear. Yeah, it's going to be a secondary show, and then they're still going to have Dark and Dark Elevation on YouTube. So they're changing. So There you go. Ask and you shall receive. You didn't have to go back in time and retrieve the Infinity Stones from your former self to do it. Right. I just displayed my nerdiness. I mean, the guy with the Batman tattoo, for God's sake. Yes, I just displayed my nerdiness again. Well, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us here again for our Wrestling Roundabout. Like I said, we'll be back next Tuesday to do it all over again, and then we'll rejoin you a week from Thursday to get back in the swing of things with Dynamite once Jamie's in town. So if you are watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it if you give us a big thumbs up. That'd be great. It does help us quite a bit. If you like what you see, tell your friends. Feel free to subscribe if you want, and share the word. So that's what we got. I gotta do Jamie's wrap up, and I actually think I'm prepared tonight. Yesterday I was not prepared, and it was not a good time.
I enjoyed it.
I know you did. I know you. I'm sure our listeners enjoyed it too. So thank you guys for joining us. And if you're not down with TSL, I got 4 words for you: free the Riott Squad. All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.